Welcome to Lamp Doc. I'm your host, Michael Kelly, and today we have an electrifying guest, Jeff Murrell. Jeff is the mastermind behind blockbuster hits like Men in Black, The Tomorrow War, and Captain Ron. From his early days on True Lies to shaping the visual brilliance of some of Hollywood's biggest films, Jeff's journey is nothing short of inspiring. In this first part, we'll dive into his beginnings, career breakthroughs, and the relationships that lit his path to success. Let's get started. Jeff Murrell, it's a real pleasure to have you here. We've known each other for a long time. We've got a lot of really close friends in common. But what I don't know, I don't know a lot of things about you, but what I don't know is, I know you grew up in Buffalo.
I did.
What got you to Hollywood? Like, how did that process start? How did it form? What got you here? What got you to be the amazing gaffer you are now?
Well, I did grow up in Buffalo, but I always say Buffalo because, it's the largest city that you're going to recognize as to where I actually really grew up, which is a very, very small farm town in upstate New York, about maybe 45 minutes north of Buffalo, like right in Lake Ontario. So very small town growing up. And then when I went to school, back in, when I went to, was deciding to go to college and where to go and what to study and what to do, at the time, engineering was a popular subject. It seemed like a career that could, amount to something over years. And so I was encouraged by my parents to go to school for electrical engineering, which I did. And then upon completion of graduating, I did work in the field, and I just came to discover fairly early on that it wasn't how I wanted to lead my life. It was not a people-oriented industry. It was very just all technical, all working with oscilloscopes and checking over printed circuit boards and that kind of thing, and developing and designing. And it just, although I did it for a few years out of college because that's what you're supposed to do when you get a college degree, I didn't enjoy it. Okay. And one of my college roommates had moved to California and had an uncle that was an actor. Not a real successful actor, but, a decently well-known guy nonetheless. And he had moved out, and his uncle got him an opportunity to work on some non-union, low-budget films and that kind of thing as an electrician. And he was just telling me what his life was like and what he was doing, and it just sounded much more interesting of a career choice than what I was doing at the time, even though I was following what I was supposed to be doing with my college degree. And I got to the point where he never guaranteed anything. He said, if you come out, I can, of course, what we all do when we first start in the industry is work for free, get your feel for it. Is it the right thing? Is it the right fit for your lifestyle? And I fell in love with it. I came out, left my job, drove out to California from Buffalo, and worked with Bob, Neville is his name, my college roommate, who got me in the industry. And we worked on very low budget movies, commercials, a lot of music videos.
Before those were union.
Right. I mean, I knew so little about the industry that, I didn't know what to expect. But I just knew that I was not going to stay doing what I was doing. So when I came out and, I worked on some music videos and some things like that, and just fell in love with the vibe, with being on set, with the opportunity that it could, provide for someone, at that age. At that time I was 22 or 23, somewhere around there. And
were your parents with you on this? Did they support you?
They didn't have much of an input on it as far as what I wanted to do with my life. They didn't want to see me move all the way out to California, but yeah, they supported it for the most part. Yeah. So it's kind of what my introduction was just coming out. And, as a kid, even when I was growing up through, junior high school, I loved going to the movies. I would go sometimes back to back, double features on my own, just because I just loved the storytelling part of it and the visual part of it. And it's always something that I was always drawn to. So when, you have these visions of what your life is going to be like, I'm going to go out and be in the movies and make it big. And you never know, and when I came out, I fell in love with it and loved being on set, loved learning, loved watching. And, then your career develops from there. And of course the rest is a longer story, but yeah, that's kind of how I got my first introduction to the industry was just leaving my electrical engineering job and coming out to California and getting my feet wet.
Just rolling the dice. And
it's kind of rolling the dice, yeah.
But we've talked a lot with a lot of other people, and it's all about relationships. It's also about forming relationships, bolstering relationships, trying to create new ones, and trying to work with people. And from seeing you work, I know that that's one of your many, many skill sets is fostering relationships with folks. That seems to be the common thread through all these successful people's careers is the ability to bolster and maintain positive relationships with people. Like
absolutely.
Yeah.
When I first came out and was getting my feet wet, and then as years go on, you get a little better opportunities to work on a little better things and this and that. And there is a point in your career, wherever you're at, that like, and I tell my kids this because they're both in 728 and they're both, set electricians. And there comes a point in your maturity level and, your passion for the job, your passion for the industry where something clicks, where you are comfortable getting hired as an electrician or as a best boy or whatever it is you're doing. And you kind of follow that progression. And for me, it clicked on a couple opportunities where I'm going, I'm really, really interested in why the cinematographer made that choice or why the gaffer told me to do this instead of that. And so I started paying more attention and started hanging out more as like, the back pocket for the gaffer and became more interested in why those decisions were made and why the approach was this instead of that, that kind of thing. And that attention and that desire to want to do more offers up opportunities. And I got a very good opportunity on my first job actually as a gaffer officially was on True Lies back in 19 whatever it was.
A couple years ago.
And it was because the gaffer became sick and had to leave the job. And I was this back pocket guy. So I got bumped up and got the opportunity to finish the movie as the gaffer and just absolutely fell in love with the responsibility, the fun things that now I get to make decisions on what we're going to do based on what the cinematographer wants. And I just fell in love with it. And it just became something I got hungry for. After that, another opportunity, presents itself, and then you just, your career progresses from there. But it's just that desire to learn and to, make decisions and to lead a group of people that are with a common goal, and to do it right and to do it respectfully. And it's just something I've been addicted to this day. I love being on set.
It's amazing.
I really enjoy it still to this day after 30 plus years. I can't wait for the next opportunity to be on a movie set. It's addicting.
So what was the first film that you got as a gaffer on your own?
On my own.
On your own merit?
I did a movie as the rigging gaffer on a movie called Speechless. And Don Peterman was the cinematographer. Don was extremely well respected cinematographer at the time in our industry. He got nominated for 2 Academy Awards for cinematography, one for Flashdance and the other one for Star Trek: The Voyage Home. And he was doing this movie, Speechless, and I was the rigging gaffer on it originally. And then I developed a relationship with Don, and I really respected him and just fell in love with working for him, even though I was, just the rigging gaffer. And when some additional photography came up for Speechless, he asked me to do it as the gaffer instead of the gaffer that originally did the show. There was some relationship issues that he wasn't happy with there, and so I got my opportunity. And I did the reshoots with Don on Speechless, which led to a movie that he was doing with Barry Sonnenfeld called Get Shorty. And so he asked me to do Get Shorty. And then from that, Don asked me to do Men in Black. So my career jumped from, I didn't spend a lot of time in the lower budget kind of venues. I actually got very, very fortunate and very blessed that I got those opportunities from Don, who must have saw something in me as, a person he could work with. And I learned more from that man than any other cinematographer I've worked with to this point. There's a few other people that have had massive influences on my life. Trent Opalak being one. And recently I've been working with Mihai Malamir, who we did that Coppola thing with. But Don was just an amazing cinematographer who taught me so many, valuable lessons to help me be successful as I, progressed in my career. But my first opportunity officially was probably Get Shorty.
Okay, that's cool. Well, I mean, you can say everything you want about luck or fortunate opportunities, but then you have to capitalize on them and you have to make those stick. And so, as much as luck may have had a part for opening the door, you walked through and you took it and you grabbed it by the rein, the horse by the reins. So, you got to. I'm going to force you to take some credit for being smart enough to know how to capitalize on those opportunities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the beautiful things about being a gaffer is that we get to work, hopefully, for many different cinematographers, all having different approaches and different ideas about what looks best. I mean, if you put 10 cinematographers in a room and you tell them all, hey, paint a picture of a house, every one of those houses is going to look different. They're all going to be nice, probably very attractive, but they're going to be different. And that's kind of the beauty of being a gaffer is you take a set of tools that you work with one cinematographer and you learn how to use them well with him, give him his image, his vision, and create all that. And then the next job you do may not be with that same cinematographer. You got to change your toolbox. You got to change your set of tools. You don't want to bring the same approach you just finished with. You want to give him his vision, and it's a great challenge. One of the best challenges for a gaffer to learn what's the best approach for that particular cinematographer at the time and develop that.
And how to do that in a very short amount of time.
Right.
On a feature film within a couple of weeks, on a commercial within a couple of hours.
Right. Well, that's one of the early on lessons I learned from Don Peterman was time management is one of the most important tools you can learn to develop in this industry. I mean, I can make something or we can make something look absolutely gorgeous. But if it's 2 hours past the time we were supposed to get it done with, nobody's really going to like that very much.
No.
So it's learning how to manage your time and giving, the best quality image that you can give him. As I've gotten later on in my career, I've gotten more involved in trying to be assertive in that I want to put my imprint on it also. Right. So offering up suggestions and collaborating back and forth is one of the other nice, beautiful things about our job is like you hear what they're saying, but because we're dealing with all the tools and the technical part of it, it's like, I got you, but how about this?
Yeah.
And how about this? And that comes with experience because you've been there.
Yeah. We've talked about this process with a lot of folks, and I've talked about it my whole career, is that what I love about this industry is that it really is a journeyman industry. Nobody starts at the top. Nobody. Even as a director, you get a big chance, but you've already done 1,000 music videos and you've done shorts and you've done all these things. Like it's almost impossible to walk out of college and get a job at the top of the food chain. It happens, but it's very rare.
Yeah.
And what I like about it is that people learn these skills through repetition, but also through self-discovery. Mm-hmm. The way you approach a film when you're 25 compared to when you're 45 or in my case 55 is way different. But it's almost always better and more efficient, So I've seen a lot of the work that you've done, and it's a pretty wide swath of styles, from big superhero movies to romantic comedies. You've had a really amazing run, and obviously it's not done yet because you're going to work until we all.
You're going to bring a stretcher out,
exactly,
and take me off, but yeah.
But what is and I hate to say goal, but what are you pushing towards now? You said that you like being more involved in the creative process. How are you achieving that? What are you doing on set or in pre-production to achieve some of those goals?
Well, I mean, a lot of that really is dictated on who you're working with. And again, it's learning how to read your DPs because, you could walk into one set and know what the DP wants. Go ahead and pre-light it, get it all ready for him, all excited to show him what you've done and everything. And then there's maybe a little bit of conversation about adjustments and you move on and you feel good about being a part of that creative process. And then there's other situations where you could be on a set where the cinematographer does not want you to do that. They want to build it according to what their style is. So have everything ready, be prepared, having options, this and that, but not necessarily go, see what I did for you? It's more like, where would you like to begin? Where would you like to start the process of making it look where you want to be? So it really is learning how to to read who you're working with and adjusting your creative inputs based on what they want from you. I remember a few jobs that I've done feature-wise where I was very excited to work with that particular cinematographer because his family name was Florian Bauhaus. Right. Great guy. And I've learned so much from him, and since then I've gotten to do a few movies with him. But the very first thing I did with him, I knew who he was. I'd never worked with him. I knew who his father was. And I'm like, I got this guy. I'm gonna let him know he's in good hands. I'm gonna take care of him. And what I didn't know is I hadn't developed the relationship yet with Florian. And so it wasn't as smooth as I thought it was, is because here I am trying to show him all these things and do all this stuff. It's like, slow down. I want to be a part of the process too, because, the cinematographers also enjoy lighting. I mean, it's part of their, obviously, a huge part of the job. And they want to be included in it. And I was a little bit too like, God, this guy's great. I really want to impress him, to not really understanding completely the process of what he was looking for. And I got the opportunity about maybe 10 years later to do a movie with him, and learning from that experience, I had one of the best times ever with him. He's a very creative, pleasant, wonderful guy to work for. And I learned from the first time around. Luckily, I got a second opportunity to do that. But point being is that you really do have to read who you're working for and how to creatively help them without doing too much or too little.
It's a balance, like you said, but part of it is the opportunities in pre-production. You can really spend some time getting to know somebody and sort of learning their tastes. That's a process that I'm sure you've gotten very good at. But those times when it doesn't work out in prep, where you just aren't getting that vibe and things aren't clicking the way you want, and the sets aren't coming together quite the way you thought they would. Like, how do you make those quick adjustments? When I say quick, it could be a week, but how do you start to make those adjustments effectively and sort of get that back on your side? What tools do you have for that?
Well, I mean, there is an ebb and flow to every movie. And there are, you're going to take chances, and hopefully most of them work out and most of them are the right direction. There are times where whatever the holdup is, or whatever the pushback is, could be financial. Could be like, yeah, I got all these great ideas, but they're not willing to pay for it. So you have to think, okay, I get it. Part of my job is to pay attention to the budget and make sure that, I'm being respectful to that. And that does create its own challenges as far as being creative, in that you have to be able to have a backup plan if what you're fighting for just isn't going to happen. And the pushback is to the point where, look, this is not, we're not going to approve this. It's just not going to happen. Right. So you can't say, well, that's all I got for you. It's the only way to do this. You're spending the money whether you like it or not. You can't do that. It's suicide.
You might be able to do that once,
and that's about it. I think it's being able to creatively go, okay, I don't want to compromise the look. I don't want to compromise what the vision is, but I have to come up with a different way, because there's just, and you have to be respectful of budgets to the point where you got to learn how to balance. Okay, are they, is this truthfully really they don't want to spend the money, or, they just can't. And
right.
and it is having experience to say, okay, well, I get it. Okay, let's try this idea. And because of those things, having to swap in, it's like, okay, we got to pump the brakes on this idea. We got to readjust this. We got to do this, and let's try this out. Hopefully you've done enough where you've solved the problem.
Any good examples of that where you've really pulled a rabbit out of the hat, in ways that you didn't even quite expect when you were setting yourself up for it?
Gosh, I'd have to really, that is a tough question. It is. I'd like to say I've never made that mistake and never had to do that, but
I'd like you to be able to say that too.
It's an interesting balance, because to give up on an idea that you have because you are really passionate about what it's going to do for the movie as far as the visual goes is one thing, but then the balance is, okay, I know I have to do something different. I know I have to change my approach because it's just not fitting to where we can make this happen. it's coming up with a B plan or a C plan, but not coming up to the point where they look at it and they go, well, why didn't you start with this?
Right.
It's like, because that isn't nearly as good as this. But so the balance is you understanding and us understanding technically what we're trying to accomplish and kind of the tools that we need to do that and how difficult that can be financially for a budget versus giving up the store when you got to change your approach, because you don't want to feel like I was going for everything. They didn't do it. So here's what we're going to settle for.
Right.
It is a balance of going, okay, I'm respectful, but yet here's a better plan for your budget, but it's not so hugely different that you're going, well, okay, this is just a game we're playing here,
right.
which, we're not. It's just, it is when you become very passionate about your job and how it looks, sometimes it's hard to express to some of the people that you're working for outside the cinematographer why that's essentially important for the scene, and that's an interesting challenge in itself, is to try to explain to someone who doesn't know your job as well as you do or understands why, frustratingly enough, this has to be the approach, because that's not what they do for a living. Their job is to look at numbers and see how they fit into the box.
Well, it's always a bit of a compromise. The budget is always less than you need. I can't remember a job where they've said, don't worry about it. Spend as much as you need. Don't worry about it.
Yep. I don't think I could recall any time when they said, you sure you don't want more?
Right.
You sure that's enough? It's like, yeah.
You don't want more 18Ks?
I haven't had that.
Yeah.
I have been creatively had to come up with certain ideas that getting to know a cinematographer, you might misread them as far as what they do want, and you get in a situation going, uh-oh, I better get a lot more here, or I'm going to run out, or I got to readjust how I'm using things so that I don't say to them, well, I can't do that because we don't have enough to do what you're asking for. So can be a tricky balance. Those are interesting scenarios that I'm sure we all have.
So what are you better at now than you were 10 years ago or 20 years ago? What have you added to your skill set? And it's not necessarily just management, but what tools do you bring with experience that you don't think that you had 10 or 20 years ago?
The obvious answer to that, a lot of it would be technology. I had, as an example, I did the original Men in Black in 1996. And then I did Men in Black 2 in 2001, 5 years later. And just at that point in time, the jump, even then, from technology had changed, not quite as dramatic as it has now, but even in that 5-year span, it changed. Like, I remember the first Men in Black, when we built the headquarters for the MIB headquarters. It was massive. It was at stage 15 over at Sony. And, it was all done with 20Ks, 10Ks, the big, Fresnel lights. And then 5 years later, learning what I learned on the first one, we built that same headquarters, but I did it completely different. Of course, I had the luxury of doing the first one and going, I think if I ever had to do this again, I would do it this way. And we did, and it came out much better. I ended up using 12 light maxis and a different diffusion on the headquarters front. And that's just coming from being in the situation and experience telling you, you got to do it different. And you got to gimbal the windows this time, and you've got to have a heavier diffusion, and off angle you don't want to see the sources, so directly on rather. But so there's that, and then from that point to now, it's the development of LEDs. It's in a good way, I believe, has taken over our industry, and importantly enough, to stay on top of that technology. I think what have I learned 10 years ago from now is that don't get complacent in what the technology offers. You got to always be pushing and get out of your comfort zone, because things change that quickly. I mean, even a couple of years ago, things have exponentially changed. When we did, I think it was Winter Soldier, the first Marvel thing I did, we used a lot of hybrid technology, LED, with KinoFlow. Right. Cut to when I did Civil War and the latest Avengers, it was all full spectrum LED, completely different units, things that I used on the first Captain America, I didn't use, 6 years later on the same company, Marvel, but, different, same series of movies, but completely different approach to lighting instruments and what we used. So, I mean, the important thing is to really try and stay really on top of the changes and what keeps developing almost, dare I say daily, but almost, that quickly. Right. Is that, there's so many different ways to use the lights that we have. And of course, you go to the trade shows every year and there's a new set of lights that, you want to embrace. Yeah. And enjoy using and learning about and that kind of thing. So I think it's not the thing that I enjoy most is not being complacent with what you use, using different products, testing them out, trying them ahead of time. I'll bring a couple of things on to a commercial that I don't plan on using. I just want to play with them and see what they can offer, so that I'm familiar with them, so that I come up into a situation and go, you know what? I didn't use it on that commercial, but boy, that thing will be perfect for what we're about to do.
Yeah, it's a good proving ground for new gear.
It really is.
But also, and we're fortunate to be part of the ICLS, but what a resource that has turned out to be. And there's plenty of other resources out there. The Gaffer Salon. There's a lot of other avenues for information, but that's a concentrated spot for information. And the wealth of knowledge in that group is amazing.
It's insane. I mean, that Mike Bauman has done just an incredible job with the ICLS. I mean, originally, I remember when with the first couple of meetings we had, it was 50 Zoom guys, all from all over the world, talking about, are you working, or what's the process here, or how far are they going up the nose with yours, the whole thing, and cutting to what that was originally set for was just gather information amongst all of us, going, how do we get through this pandemic, to an unbelievable source of information from A to Z. I mean, there's nothing on the Discord that you can't find in ICLS that doesn't help your situation. Point being is, you're going out of the country on a job and you know nothing about that area. You reach out, hey, has anybody worked in this area? Any suggestions, any names? It just that alone can be very helpful. Or, hey, I'm having trouble making a Titan do this. What mode is it in? Or what? Anybody learn anything? Oh, there's an update. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that. It's just that information on ICLS is insurmountably valuable to what we've, accomplished over a short amount of time with the ICLS.
But that's sort of part of that development process in embracing new technology, because you have to embrace maybe not all of it, but it's certainly a big part of it. And
huge, yeah.
The development of your programmer, when you started your career with a 24-channel board, with Scott Barnes just being an electrician that happened to sit down behind it, to now this massive infrastructure of networks and data that you can't really fathom how you'd live without.
Absolutely.
And that's a really short amount of time.
It is. And the challenges with that, and I'm sure a lot of gaffers will agree with me, that it's the education of the people that we work for to let them know, well, why do you need another programmer? My rigging programmer is essentially as important as, the first unit programmer, because how can I even get there without being set up right? So it's the education of why you need a rigging programmer, a data team, why when you plug a light in and it's the 513th data byte and everything shuts off because a universe is 512. Right. And to educate the people that you work for that this is essential. And yes, if I was able to have the time and bean count it, say, well, this is what it saves you. You just got to let me get there. Right. It's an education for the younger producing teams that don't quite understand why we need all these positions and how important they are to speeding up the process, getting more work done while we're filming because of the setup time and the tools that we use to get there. And it's sometimes a very, very patient and Zen task to try to explain why you need certain, a good example is the fixtures department. It used to be back when I did like Men in Black, it was the rigging gaffer hiring a few extra guys to plug in some desk lamps and wire up some fluorescent, tubes and stuff. But now that is a completely different department that sometimes starts work before you do because they're integrating with the set design because you need to get the data put in the set before it's built.
Yeah.
So that whole, department and the value of what, a good fixtures team can bring to a project is another educational thing for a producer when they say, well, we don't really have a fixtures department. It's like, well,
right.
Okay, this is why you need one.
but you need one.
Yeah, but you need one.
Maybe we should do a class for producers. ICL's class for producers.
Well, it would be an educational thing for them, and I think it would be useful. I mean, we've all worked for those producers who get what we do and understand it, and you don't have to go through that. The Joanne Paritanos and the people like that they're very firm in what they their job is, but they also understand what our job is.
Yeah.
And it's those collaborative relationships are valued quite deeply for us.
And that type of producer for us is invaluable.
Yeah, it really is.
Technology aside, relationships aside, what is it about being on set that really does it? Like what's the thing? What's that? Because it's really it really is sort of, and now after 30 plus years on set, it's in your DNA. Like, you walk into this room and you notice where the light's coming from. You notice that there's a skylight, like, oh, we might have to cover that. Like, I wonder why they didn't cover that.
Yeah.
We're shooting here, but, it just happens instinctively. Any room you walk into, you sort of notice the light in. But what is it about being on set that gives you that joy?
I think part of the addiction for me is, and this only comes with experience, is that when I walk onto a set now that I've designed with the cinematographer and we've got it all ready to go, you're a little more relaxed, a little more confident, and a lot more confident in what you've presented. So then for me, it's been the ability to develop relationships with your own crew and having more fun and working the process with them because you're a little more confident in what's going on and you get to explain to your crew, hey, this is why we're kind of doing this. Sometimes I overdo it a little bit because I'm so passionate about, isn't this great, this rig that we put in? But I want them all to enjoy what we've created because it's a lot of work. I mean, especially as we talked about with technology and networking and that sort of thing, it requires talent on your crew to be able to accomplish these big rigs. And I get excited when my crew is enjoying seeing what it is that we're putting together. Like it's no longer I'm, tunnel visioned on, I got to make sure the DP's cool. It's going right. I'm not really paying full attention to, are they enjoying themselves? Is my crew having a good time putting this together? Do I make sure that I let them realize how much I appreciate what they're doing for me? Because it's no longer plug a light in, throw a scrim in it, and, stand by with a piece of gel with a bunch of pre-cuts. Right. There's programming, there's the right settings, all that thing. And they, as a team, put that all together by communication through me and through them and through the whole team. And I really enjoy seeing a group of people that I've put together enjoy that with me, and I'm now as I've gotten older and still love being on set like I do, I also realize the importance of having a team with you that is enjoying being there. And I love to look around and see that somebody's having a great time or excited, or I'll pull people, you guys got to come over to the monitor. You got to stop, look what we've done. This is great. The DP's happy. I love this. Thank you. And I get enjoyment out of that. I really enjoy seeing them thrive and want to do better. And there's the best thing you can do is realize that there shouldn't be egos involved. We're all going to benefit from a great looking product. And, through my career, I've seen guys that show more interest and want to take that next step to possibly being a gaffer. I fully encourage that. Right. I mean, it's not a competition. It's more like, I want to develop you. And I had something to do with your success later on in years. I can look back and look at quite a few gaffers that I've helped out along the way that are doing really well. Yeah. I had something to do with it. I feel like to me, that's more of an accomplishment of self-gratification than it is like I'm competing for him for a job now. I'm not. It's enjoyable to see people do well and progress and be as excited and happy about their job as I am. And a lot of that, it's a good part of why I love being on set. It's just fun to collaborate with people and enjoy seeing a final product that works.
Well, I know a lot of people that have had the pleasure of working with you, and they all appreciate that part of it. They all feel valued. A lot of people have mentioned how enjoyable your sets are, and that's something that I strive for too. I'm probably not as good at it as I could be, but I'm working on it. That's a goal for me. But I think that I've heard repeatedly from folks over and over and over how much they enjoy working with, near you, whatever it is, both grips and electricians and camera people.
Well, I mean, it is showing the respect that, the lighting part of it, which we're all very passionate about, and the most passionate about is, there's other departments that are equally passionate about what they do, and to work together as a team for that, especially with our grips. There's nothing worse than being on a set where the grip department and the electrical department aren't in unison together, because we can't do our job without their support and vice versa. And to work together with a team that expands outside just electric to a grip department, it's invaluable. The fun ideas to run off of. I mean, you probably talked to a lot of key groups I work with. I drift a little bit sometimes out of my lane, and I'm quickly pushed back into it. But I'll throw an idea out. I know it's not a great one, but I know they're going to take it and run with it and make it a better idea.
Right.
It's just how you carefully tiptoe over into that area, because they're also very passionate about lighting and about what they provide and contribute to the movie also. So I always enjoy developing a great relationship with the key grip, because we can't do our jobs without each other, and so why not make it the best collaboration that we can? And I've been very, very fortunate to work with some of the absolute best key grips in the business, like Mike Anderson and Jimmy Shelton, and it's just been very fortunate that way.
There seems to be a wealth of amazing key grips in the industry right now. Just the layers go on and on and on, and you've gotten to work with quite a few of them. I've had the fortunate experience of working with quite a few of them too, but they're as good at lighting as I am, and in some respects better, in their own specialty.
Mm-hmm.
That's an amazing experience when you have a partner who understands light in the same way or in an equal way to you. That's an asset that you can't even put a price on. It makes your life so much better.
And that balance is not always easy, because generally a key grip and a gaffer, they're both alpha dogs. They're both got that alpha personality. So the balance needs to be found, because you got to show respect for both, both avenues of accomplishing the task. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's been a few times when a key grip has said, maybe you shouldn't put that light there. And your first instinct is, and then you're like, oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. It's a really easy thing to fall into. But
the bottom line is they're just trying to get the best result also. And so, tit for tat. I drift over, he drifts over. It's okay. It's all fine. We're all trying to, get the same job done as best we possibly can. Right. So, yeah.
That's a wrap on part 1 with Jeff Murrell. Stay tuned for part 2, where we explore his work on groundbreaking projects and his insights into the evolving world of film lighting. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe for more stories behind the lights.